Good morning. This is Bishop Judy Anderson, and we are going to be listening through WCEG Talk Radio. And the opinions of my show, it does not necessarily be the opinions of their radio station. And I'm going to be talking on a wonderful subject today because I'm going to be dealing with Black History Month. I realized that this was the time that we are looking forward and looking into the history of Black history. Black history is very unique in that we are looking into global legacy. The name of my show is Global Legacy and Wealth to the Nations. And Black history has had a strong fight for justice and for those things that they needed to go into global legacy. I am one of the people who have benefited from that, and I'm sure some of your children have benefited from that. But one of our greatest fighters that I remember and that I had encounters with was Dr. Dorothy L. Height. And she started back in I think it's 1979. I have her bio here, where she was doing Black family reunions. Black family reunions spread across the nation because she went and made it her business as a civil rights activist to go into every city, to go into every state, and to really be that active in getting Black families to come together. I am originally from Washington, D.C., and so I met with her at several occasions. And one occasion I remember in particular, I was at the National Forum for Black Public Administrators, and we were at their conference. And so Dr. Heights walked in, and she sat down in a room that I was in, and I was helping to serve during that capacity. And I was watching her, and she started nibbling a little bit on the hors d'oeuvres that they had, and she kept looking around. And so I kept looking at her, and I wanted to see what she needed so I could get it. And as she looked around, she realized she was in the wrong room. She got up, she said, she told the person with her, she said, this is not the room we belong in. And actually we were in the room for education, and the educators were in there, but that wasn't where she was looking for. We know that she was an emeritus president for the National Negro Women. And that was something that she National Council for Negro Women. Let me get it straight. They called her the godmother of civil rights, the civil rights movement. Now we hear a lot when it comes time for Black history to come up about people who are involved in Black history. We hear about Sojourner Truth. We hear about Calvin Washington. We hear about various different people, but we are not as strong with knowing who did some of the simple stuff. Did you know every time you go get a blood test that was put together by a Black man? He discovered the father of the blood bank is Charles Richard Drew. And Charles Richard Drew discovered the blood bank that you probably now go into. In the 40s, he became this person who also ran sports, football, track, and he did other things while he was in college. But he had a biology professor, and in the interest of medicine at that time. We know many people have not gotten credit for what they have done in the medical community for the historical stuff that they've gotten, even people that they have trained and brought into being. And so there are different people that I want to also discuss today who have interesting and historical lives to bring you into that place. Some people think that the first Black judge is the sitting judge now, but I got news for you. The first Black woman judge in the US was Jane Bolin, made history over and over. She was the first Black woman to graduate from Yale Law School. And maybe we don't give her enough credit because she graduated from Yale. I think it's very sad and lacks compassion the way that we will make others struggle when they make it to the Ivy League colleges, knowing that we need to get in there and have racial equality there. And so they have taken it. She went. She was the first Black woman to join the New York City Bar Association, the nation's first Black female judge. So we have history that we don't even know about. And so in our day, we come to that again. Now, do you know every time you go and open the refrigerator, yes, it was done by a Black man, Frederick McKinney Jones. He was the one who pioneered the modern refrigerator system. But we would never hear that. We are looking for other names on our refrigerator, but he was the one that did it. And of course, he is a Black man. Now, I'm not giving you the years that they transition in. Most of these people I'm talking about now have transitioned into heaven for their heavenly reward. Excuse me. There was one African-American lawyer, Eunice Carter, was a social worker and a prosecutor who investigated work, did investigative work in New York City in the 1930s and led to what was then the largest prosecution for organized crime in US history. What a woman. She's a Black woman who came against the mafia. And you know, I will put in here and remind you that I'm trying to get mothers in particular, because you will do it, to stand up and get your children to be who they need to be in this era. That you indeed would take authority over those rooms that they have shut you out of in your house. The Lord said to Joshua, and Joshua said to the Lord, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Now, here is a woman who took on the whole, and you never hear about it in the news or the movies. I want you to know the name of the organization she took on. When the notorious mob boss, Charles Lucky Luciano, met his downfall, the credit went to a young prosecutor, Thomas Dewey, who eventually ran for president. But it was her. It was Carter, Eunice Carter, an assistant district attorney on his team, who laid the foundation for the case. Most of you all don't realize that's what paralegals do. Paralegals are the one that do the work, and the lawyers step up and take all the credit because they deliver it in the courtroom. I know some dynamite paralegals. I studied it myself because I thought at one point the Lord would allow me to become a lawyer, but he said, no, I'm called to the earth and assigned to be an apostle and prophet. So I'm going to try to do the best I can with that. The first Black woman to argue before the Supreme Court, Constance Baker Motley. And she graduated from a Connecticut high school with honors. But her parents were immigrants from the Caribbean and couldn't afford to pay for college. So Motley, a youth activist who spoke in community events, made her own good fortune. A philanthropist heard of her speeches and was so impressed that he paid for her to attend NYU. We have a lot of philanthropists in our day. We have them making grants. The HBUs in this last year, I think 2023, received a astronomical amount of money, which I hope they put to good use. I think it was $90 million. But hear me. You have a God that sits high and looks low and has all power in his hand, and he has every intention for you to get wealth. Some of you, like I told you, are sitting on wealth. And so I want you to begin to understand what has happened in the process of legacy that your parents have, that their parents had. Their parents were looking forward to getting land. Land is a process that causes you to have wealth. But one thing that is, I want you to take note of, and I want you to take note of today, all of these people that I'm talking about fought for something. Dorothy Heights was a civil rights person. Most of the presidents, President Johnson, President Bush, President Obama, all of these presidents came for her counsel. And she was a gorgeous woman. And you knew her by her hats that she wore. You could look at her and tell when she walked into a room, it was her crown of glory. And so, beloved, I want to talk today and really get involved with how Black history has not talked enough on sharecropping. Sharecropping has been that place where they were renting land from those that were landowners so that they could become landowners. Now, I know some beautiful stories about how people have done with sharecropping. Matter of fact, I know of a particular church in Durham, North Carolina, wherein the family, the pastors of that church, ended up with the property that the woman's, the first lady, she wasn't the first lady, she was an apostle, that particular apostle, they were able to secure the land that her father used to work on. Now that is victory. That's knowing how to go get land. And beloved, I know that God will bless you with land. He will bless you above and beyond what you can ask or think. The relative question is, what are you going to do with the land that he gives you? I deal very truthfully with where our families are today. Black Family Reunion is the place where you can share and you can come. But usually, a lot of people don't want to get together because they will always have a couple of drug addicts coming, a couple of alcoholics coming, people who need professional counseling, and they really need the Lord. And then the Christians will come. And they have to get to the place that they understand that they should fellowship with their families without having them to be intimidated with them coming, that they can joyfully enjoy their company and that they have that. One of the things Jesus did was show up at the fellowships. That's where we first see him. We want to say that he performed a miracle, but he did not. The people performed the miracle. When his mother said to them, do whatever he says. When they said that to him, he said, it is not yet my time. And I'm not going to take you through a long Bible study today, but I have to drop this nugget in there to you. Jesus did nothing except he saw the Father doing it. See. What do you see? Watch as well as pray. What is your inlet to what it is? And so he told the men while he sat there, he said, fill up the water brims and pour it out. If they had not poured it out, there would have been no miracle. They had to do the miracle. As he said, it was not yet his time. So the gift was in them to produce that creative miracle. I just wanted to throw that at you. Sharecropping is the legal arrangement in which a landowner allows a tenant to use the land in return for a share of the crops produced on that land. Now, I could stop right here. If we had a call-in show with really talking and people calling in, it would get very hot right now because people have stories where this has not happened. And the reason it has not happened is because of education, being wise in business affairs, and not, hear me, writing things down. I'll let that meditate a little bit. If you don't have it in writing, you have no way to fight. If it's in writing, you can go right back and say, here it is right here. Let's look at the details. Now we have landowners. Some of the African-American people are sitting on land, and you're sitting on a gold mine, and you don't understand what to do with your land. One of the events that Dorothy Heights used to attend is the Black Family Reunion in Washington, D.C. And it was big. And I took note of how they did it. They put up tents. So it was going to be rain or shine. And the tents represented what they were going to do. Sometimes we think so away from ourselves that we don't realize we could set tents up on our property. Now, if it's going to be a big event and y'all going to have 100 folks show up, make sure you have a permit to do it, even if it's on your property. Because if you have cars coming in and out, just what I'm saying to you, check out the laws of the council in your city. If you live in any municipality, they have laws. If you live in a community where you have to pay homeowners fees, those are the people setting your laws. This is why we must learn not to just pay and pay them off, but to find out what are they doing and what do they have permission to do. What are you in agreement with and what you are not in agreement with? And so, beloved, this is your fight on your level, where you live, what you own, and what you should do with it. And so we miss it many times because, first of all, when we come home from work, we don't want to confront anything. What most of us do when we vote, we put out voter registration and we put it into play, but we don't realize the people we're voting for. And so if you have a homeowners association, please go to the next meeting, find out what laws they are making. If you go to the council meeting that they're having, what most people don't realize, no, the council isn't just there for show. In some places, they're called commissioners. In other places, they're called councilmen. But whatever you have that's supposed to be representing your ward or your zone, Please go. Find out who they are. Don't wait till the problem comes to you. Go to it. God will give you the fight if you show up. Most people don't want to show up. And I'm going to spend some time telling you how to show up. Because many of us show up, but we show up with an anger. When you don't have to get angry, just get what's written. Do it with a smile. Because when you come more than one time, they now know they have a problem. If you come to the council meeting and you sit in the council meeting, before you know it, they're going to be acknowledging that you are there. Most people don't realize you got one little old lady, and normally it's a white lady, who's showing up at the council for her neighborhood and getting what she wants. And the only thing she got to say is that she represents the whole municipality of that one place. And they will give her what she wants. They will do whatever it takes to keep her quiet. And so, beloved, we must learn not only to not just call it civil rights, but to understand that we are activists for all nations of people, and that we step up to the plate. This is why you have apostles and prophets that are called to the marketplace. When you look over Dr. Dorothy Height's story, you can never deny as a person of God that this woman isn't a prophet. She's a prophet that God opened doors to and sent her to the nations. And isn't that what he told Jeremiah? I have made you in your mother's womb a prophet to the nations. Well, she did it. And her one assignment that she's known for, she did many acts in civil rights and injustices. She was there for the Civil Rights Bill. But the thing that we all know her for is Black family reunions. And I really believe that that was the assignment that God put her on the earth to make sure that it was successfully done, to bring us back together again. That we don't just go our own way, but we work together to have and to unify. Now, I know it's hard to unify with people who don't want to unify. But that's why we have counselors and we have pastors and leaders that you can sit down and talk to who have great wisdom and who can help you be who you need to be. So, beloved, plan that family reunion again. I do know that they're saying and they're threatening that there are going to be more viruses. Put your mask on. Put your mask on and have fellowship. We have too many stories where people are afraid to come out and they are not using wisdom when they come out and be together. Don't go to the family reunion and you know you already sick. Stay home. Let them put it on Zoom or put it on Facebook. All of this media is available to us when you don't have to miss it. You're right there and you're doing what you need to do, which is to greet family, meet cousins you have not met. My family used to send me to South Carolina every year from DC. And every year, every summer, when school let out, we didn't get home to stay home a day until we were old enough to say we wasn't going no more. We would head to Spartanburg, South Carolina. And that's so interesting that God would give me an assignment with the city of Goshen down here in South Carolina. I'm not that far from where South Carolina and Spartanburg are connected together. And so, beloved, we are in position to do what God has said. to carry on the fight. These people that I have spoke about today, some of them were just inventors. They invented stuff. And they did it. There are people who did it without even a college education. That creativity that's in them, they allow God to formulate it and it come out of them. Do you know every time you stop at a traffic light that a Black man made the traffic light? Beloved, we are those that are carrying the historical value of our people and our nations. And we are coming together to bring out those things which they have already forerun for. Today, I'm really focusing on Dr. Heights because she did so much for people, and she did so much for people on a whole, and especially African American people. And they were there to support her when she went into the city. I was invited by, some of you may remember, Tom Skinner was the chaplain for the Redskins. And his wife, Barbara Skinner, is an activist, and she was part of the Black Caucus, and very intelligent woman, you know, and she was even a lawyer, I think. But Barbara Skinner, they needed an African American minister to come and do the invocation for the Ebony Fashion Show. And they got in touch with me. And when I went, Tom Skinner got up that morning and he talked about Dorothy Heights. And he said he walked in the room and he saw this young girl and she was sitting down, and he said, "Why are you sitting there and being so tired?" She said, I'm tired from my job. I'm tired. He said, "Well, who do you work for?" She said, "I work for Dorothy Heights." And people who know her know that every time you saw her, she was alert. She was in place. She knew what she had come to do, and she did what she had come to do. And so, beloved, I want us to get the energy that our forefathers had, because they had energy to do what they needed to do. They didn't come home and say, "I can't make the meeting because my job won't allow me." They knew that once they did one job, they had a whole nother circle of jobs that had to be done that involved people growing and learning and being historical. God did never made a mistake about the nations of people that he made. I think we have gotten to the point we are so closed in. You have to live beyond your zip code. I'll say that again. You need to live beyond your zip code. Your zip code is the one place where you are. But zip codes go all over the United States. And I don't know about abroad if they have them as zip codes. I know they got them in different phone connections. But beloved, what is your plan? And what is the plan that God has for your life that's going to cause your family to increase? There are young people that do not realize that they are called to have a place in this earth to make a exchange for wealth. And the reason many of them can't handle it when there come times for those people to transition that have wealth is because they have not studied or been mentored, or you're the wrong person, because God chooses our boundaries and our dwelling places. And so the person that has gathered the wealth, the person that have looked forward to it and did what they needed to do, they are the ones who distribute the wealth. God tells them where to distribute it to. just like that judge we saw, where she couldn't afford to go to college, but God sent a philanthropist. And I know many people in business today who say they are working towards that goal to be a philanthropist in what they do. We have to see ourselves as how he sees us, as people that can carry wealth and distribute it the way that he says to distribute it. I look at the basketball players of today, and many of them are using wisdom. They have teams of people, publicists, and people who show them how to stay in the limelight by giving away. But it has to be in their heart. It has to be that place where they desire. They are who their mamas raised them to be. You know, have you ever noticed that when they get on TV and they get the championship rings, that they always crying and looking for their mama? They don't call for their dads, they call for their mothers. Because mothers are the ones that we're going to stick with them. We're going to take them to the baseball, the football, the basketball games. We're going to not do for ourselves to make sure that they get there. I saw on Facebook, there was a place where they had a little boy. And I mean, he was little, he could barely talk. And here, I don't know if it was his aunt coaching him. They had bought him a basketball, and he was looking straight up in her eyes. She said, "Now I want you to go over there and put the ball in the basket." And he said, he repeated it, "Put the ball in the basket." And he went over there, and she said, "Now do what your coach said." And he said, "Do what my coach said." That's how much he didn't know. He was a repeater. He went right over there, shot the ball, put it down in there, and they just all stayed that like they would do if they were in a stadium. They all started yelling, and he started clapping. We train people to do what we want them to do. And every family, you may find that young person you need at a Black family reunion. Every family needs to be having Black family reunions and discovering the treasure that's in your family. It takes a lot for us to do what we do. You know, I grew up in a place, in a situation wherein when they had gangs that came to my school, and I was so-called middle class, and the teacher had taught us in the economical class about when you see extra, extra on the newspaper. And I looked up, and one day, one of the students walked in, one of the male students walked in, who never carried a book. And now he's carrying a briefcase. So the gym teacher got interested. Why was he carrying a briefcase when he never carried a book? And when he opened it up, he had a gun in it, which made them lock the school down and search all the lockers. Well, when they searched all the lockers, they found out the goody two-shoes middle-class children had guns. And it was in the news, extra, extra. There used to be a paper in DC called the Evening Star. And the parents were just shocked that their children had guns. Now, you go all the way back. That was back 1966. That was all the way back there. And you don't have that much difference going on now. Parents need to pay attention to what your child has in their bedroom, hiding from you and hiding from the police. And stop thinking that your children don't lie to you. There's always a period of lying. And when you want to fight and believe that your child does not lie, you're going to find out the biggest shock of all. And I want you not to be shocked. First of all, take back your house. Stop letting them walk around territorially in your house. If you're taking drug money from them and they're paying your bills, stop it. Stop doing it. Let them know there's a new sheriff in town and we're not going to live like that because you want them to live. And stop thinking that the girls are not involved, because they are. And that's not going to be somebody's friend's gun that you find. That's going to be her gun. It has now reached a point where children fear that if they don't have protection, they can't move around. We need to find these things out and deal with them in our community. We keep saying that the police deals wrongly with our children, but if you go in your child's room, I call it a jump in. I'm not jumping out, I'm jumping into it. Because there is no age that a child should live in your house that you don't have control over what's going on. Beloved, be that person that loves your child enough to check on what's going on. Don't put your head in the church. I gotta go to church. I gotta go to church tonight. Sometimes you need, first of all, you ought to have your child going to church with you. That ought to not be a choice. If you leave the house, they need to leave the house. I can tell you stories that if the child had been at church, what wouldn't have happened in their house. Horrific stories. Okay? I'm talking about mass murders. And we are living in a time wherein the only thing that they see is done by the game shows and the ones that they pick up. I didn't even allow that in my house. There has never been games in my house. My children were brilliant children. And to this day, I appreciate the fact that they read all the books they want, but they didn't get a game. That hatred, that hitting, and that you are training them to do something. And maybe we can later on have a show where we get some people on here from veterans on here to explain to you the training that goes on to change your mind so that you will automatically kill. We can stop a lot of what we see. And yes, I'm using my platform to speak to that because these African Americans that we are celebrating in Black History Month, they were getting knocked down and killed by the government because they wanted to get rid of racism. And thank God, when many of them had a voice to be heard, the community got behind them. But beloved, we cannot go along with every time we get ready to do something, it's going to be the community jumping up behind us. And so I want you to become an activist first in your house, and you deal with injustice. I dealt with injustice in my children's school. And I want to tell you something. Some of you mothers that show up to school and they intimidate you or try to intimidate you, go in and see the principal. I had an incident. My child was in an advanced class and he was getting advanced. I mean, he thought if he got a B, he cried. And I just looked at him because if I ever got a B, my mama would be happy. But if he got a B, he cried, literally, real tears. I said, what's wrong with you? I got a B. And he wanted an A. So that show you how brilliant my children were. And he got his report card, and the woman had put a C on it. And my child had never seen a C. So I went up to the school, being an active parent. And when I went up to the school, the principal brought me in. On that particular day, I actually had left something, went to or going to something for as a clergy. So I had on my civics. And when I walked in the office and came in to see the principal, she's sitting there and she said, oh, Dr. Anderson, what can I do for you? And 10 minutes later, here comes somebody else and one of his teachers, the teacher I'm going to talk about, because she gave him a C and he's in the advanced class. It shows you we have to keep up with what our teachers are doing too. And so she came in 10 minutes later. Now I'm sitting there and I'm the only person on my side. And so we're talking, and I told him, I said, I know how brilliant my children are. I said, the teacher made a mistake. I said, but you have to know what it does to my child when you make that kind of mistake. And why would she make that kind of mistake knowing he's in an advanced class and he won't be in hers? And so she said she would correct that. The other thing is he had somebody bullying him. So 10 minutes later, here come a third person in the room. Now remember, I'm in here by myself. I want you all to understand how to fight. And so I knew what they were doing. But you ought to be happy and understand they fear you. Because they couldn't confuse me. I knew what I was focused on. I knew the power I had going in there. And so I want to show you something. If you don't have, or you have to go someplace to represent your children, and you can't speak, or you get nervous when you get in front of people in authority, take somebody with you who can help share in the delivery of your case. Because they don't expect for you to have help. And I want you to go in and have help. God can't deliver what you don't show up for. Show up. Sometimes he sits back just waiting. He said, when you get there, I've already taken care of it. But you got to show up. And so, beloved, I said all of that to say, oh, the outcome was good. Matter of fact, the psychiatrist shook my hand when I got ready to go out. She said, it's been such a pleasure, Dr. Anderson. Now, I learned that from me having psychiatrists when I was in junior high school, because I was in the principal's office every day. That's hope for those children you think not going to make it. They have a creativity in them they're trying to bring out. So don't throw them away. Learn how to cultivate. You'll be surprised where they're going. And so when people ask me how I learned authority, I learned it in the principal's office. And I had 3 different male principals who were very gracious to me. And they taught me a lot. So, beloved, I want you to be able to share that with people. I don't want you to be intimidated by any audience that you walk into, because God didn't make you timid. You know, we sing this song, be bold, be strong. The Lord thy God is with thee. Let's make it real. He's with you in every situation you have to go in. Last week, I had to do something, and they had an attorney who, I don't even understand why they had this particular attorney, because it wasn't about what he was doing. And he wanted to question my credentials. And I went and faced him. And he said, when he got ready to go in office, hey, you. Well, I actually did the chicken neck on him. I said, are you speaking to me? And then he addressed me with my name. Don't you see what you can do and who you are? If we're going to do what God says we can do the things he's created us for. Every one of these people that I've said something to you about today did what they were called to do on the earth. They will stand before him and deal with it. I want to continue to talk about the sharecropping, because sharecropping is back in. And you people that own land, particularly African Americans, you need to find out what's going on in your community and what they're doing of economical development. And you need to be involved. There are many of you that have acreages and acreages of land that you really don't know the historical value of. I looked at Dorothy Heights, and her birth was March the 24th, 1912. She got a birthday coming up this month. And in 1912, the land that I have was actually put into play to give it to a Black man by a white doctor. Learn the historical value of your land. South Carolina has a lot going on about slavery, former slaves. And now they're sitting together. And I take note because I know some of the prominent people that's in the cities, that's in this particular city where I'm going to be building at. And again, I hear this conversation. They want the white people over there while they over here. The God that I serve will take you and put you in the enemy's camp. I need to say that again. The God that I serve will take you and put you in the enemy's camp. He said, know your enemy. I know you think that's just a military term, but didn't he send Moses up into Pharaoh's camp? Oh yeah, that's how that works. He went into the enemy's camp. Too many of us believe that we can sit in church, we can sing hallelujah, we can testify, but when we come out of church, oh, God don't want me dealing with the world. I don't know what God you're serving. Because the God that we serve, the God that's here now, the God that's orchestrating heaven and earth and all things pertaining to the earth, will send you into the enemy's camp to destroy it. Now, that doesn't give you permission to destroy people. And that's how some of us think. He took one blood to make all nation of men. When you look in the mirror, don't you see beauty? Don't you see, like Maya Angelou wrote, again I rise. Don't you see that you're young, gifted, and Black? Where is your purpose? Because your purpose is not in the flesh, it's in the spirit. And until you learn what your spirit can do by the inner man, you really won't know how to be successful. And so, beloved, I want you to be attentive to global legacy. Legacy of knowing not only where your parents came from, but your great great parents came from. I actually could go to Spartanburg and stay, probably rent free without leasing anywhere for about 3 years, because my great great grandmother, when I was with her every summer, she was a midwife, and she birthed as many Black children and as many white children in Spartanburg, South Carolina. They were birthed through her hands. A praying woman, a woman filled with the Holy Spirit, and had no problem speaking in tongues. She was the first minister in City Grove, North, South Carolina, the church in City Grove, Baptist Church. And I still don't know what her pastor's name was. I've been trying to find out. Who made her his first woman pastor. Now, that was when I was a young girl. Of course, she didn't let me go. I'm laying in the bed beside her and wake up and she just speaking in tongues. And I asked, I said, who you talking to? She said, oh, I'm talking to God. You're going to talk to him one day. And she was right, because she did not complete her calling because of what men thought. We're living in a new day and a new time because of people like Dorothy L. Heights. Dr. Dorothy L. Heights is a living example and living proof that the doors that were closed are open. She was always a ceiling breaker. We like to say we like to break the ceiling, break the wall. Well, she was always walking. And I got news for you. God will open doors for you that no man can shut. And he can close doors that no man can open. Please don't just give your land to people and say they're sharecropping, because I guarantee you it's a trick. If you don't do some research before you let them work your land, because that's what's happening now. When I was in Maryland 3 years ago, I had a man who was sending me papers. He sent me papers, told me of his corporation. And for all of you that know wealth, his insurance was with the Lloyds of London. And that's nothing but wealth. And he wanted to work and control my land. And it wasn't my land. I'm the steward over the land God has given me. And so it will be put into the hands of the people God have called to. We must learn how to hear God in another dimension. Sharecropping can be found on Wikipedia, and you can see, because they are always looking for a new system of credit. And when you look at it, you really look at the story and the historical place of it, it was there that you can even see them coming down with the credit card idea. So, beloved, let us not be those who are easily deceived by people who have no intention of you advancing. But let us be those that when we look historically at Dorothy Heights, we see what she has done and the legacy, the global legacy that she has left here in the world. And she's not the only one. I can't go do blood and go to LabCorp and not think it was a Black man that opened that door. And I appreciate that. But we must be the ones that put ourselves in the position where God have called us, and we make up our minds, that creative invention that you want to put out there is worth your time. The places where you walk now is worth your time. As a man thinketh, so is he. What are you thinking about? I want you, again, to look at your households, look at your community, look where you live. If in your community you're entitled to get what is called a master plan, and in that master plan, you see what laws are being made concerning your community, please go get it. They have to give it to you. And if they don't give it to you, put it on the media like you do everything else. They have to give it to you. If you live in a community and there's a council, any municipality, it has a master plan. They're there making laws concerning you and your city. This is how groups infiltrate into the cities that they infiltrate into and end up running for seats so they can control what's going on. Beloved, you're worthy. God called you because you're worthy. So put it into place. Put yourself into place. Be strong. Be bold. The wealth is in your hands, and you need to understand that that wealth that's in your hands, only you can go get it. Now, I'm not talking about being wealthy so you can shine and buy the biggest pocketbook, or you can buy the biggest car. I'm talking about wealth that is eternal. There's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. And you need to know the difference. That land you're sitting on, you sitting on wealth. I am so excited to be here with you, and I enjoy this. I wanted to bring this program to you concerning the celebration of Black history. This is just because we need Black history to be told. And they still haven't put it in the schools the way that they should. So if you're an activist and you want to see Black history move, shake your schools up in your community. Bring it to them. Let them know there are books out there that are thoroughly good for Black History Month. And not just a month, but all year long. We're a part of the community and we're not going anywhere. We were assigned by God. And so I personally hope that you have enjoyed this, that you will share this, that will spark your families to come together and have Black family reunions. So I'm looking forward to coming back to you. My next show will be on the 26th of February. Tell somebody. I do plan to have a couple of guests that I have contacted, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. I'm Bishop Judy Anderson, and this is Global Legacy, the wealth to the nations. Building wealth is what we're supposed to do. I hope that you will join us again and tell someone concerning this. You have been listening on WCEG, and you can find it repeated on Facebook and every avenue. And I want you to say that this is the day the Lord have made and that you choose to rejoice in it. So I look forward to seeing you again when we come back together. it's the timing of the Lord that we shall move in and be where we need to be in everything in life. So thank you. I appreciate you, and I will be back on the show.